Have you heard the story, by the way, that was broken by John Trent on Fandom Pulse, I believe, talking about, I guess, Hans Capone, who was only 15, and they're calling it like child. What I don't even know what the terminology he used. Child. The hell did he say? I have it up here. Hold on. I did have it up. Oh, there it is. Child sodomy.
Yeah. Well, I would say, to my mind, really disgusting that they would do this, but I can already tell you what their excuse is going to be.
Is that back in the day, they used to bang when they were 12 and 15 years old, and that wasn't shocking.
I mean, back in the day, you would get married by the age of 13.
Like 9 or 12 or 13.
Yeah. This was, I mean, it's one of the biggest mistakes that people oftentimes make is we use modern bias to judge history.
Right. Which is why I look back at this and I don't make a big deal of this because of that. But plus, like, you literally have to like go back and do the math. It's not like the game is promoting this is a child. Like, he had to do the math based off of the lore of the game to say, oh, now he's a child. Now it's child sodomy.
Yeah.
I'm like, we're really reaching on this one.
But I will say, I know they're trying to be realistic, but something has to be said for someone that goes, let's make a 15-year-old part of this relationship. Right? Something has to be said about that. Even though you want to be, I mean, even the most historically accurate movies that's really trying to tell the historical sort of ideas of the time will sometimes leave some of those more problematic things out of it, right? Like, maybe we won't show all of the problematic shit that people did back then because it's to the modern audience that is off-putting. And for the modern audience, 15-year-olds are not on the list. Right? That's not how it plays. So, but I also think, maybe he isn't. Maybe they have an argument for why he isn't 15 and why his math is completely wrong on this. I genuinely don't know.
I mean, I think Vavra was even having conversations online, like admitting to it and saying like it's not wild for the time to be depicting that. So that was the TLDR that I grasped from it. I could be misreading it, but
then my original point stands. Why have it in there? I get that it is realistic, but it doesn't have a place in modern day gaming, right? There's time and place. The modern day audience views that stuff as pedophilia. It's not actually supposed to be pedophilia. The problem is trying to explain what it is makes you sound like a pedophile, so everyone just goes with pedophilia. It's something that is frowned upon. We don't accept it. So I'm not sure why you would stick to that amount of realism in your video game, because why would it be a problem to just make them both 18?
True, but that would not be accurate to the time. And this is what Vavra says in response to, if you decide you want a love scene with Hans, you're committing pedophilia because Hans is 15. You cannot even make this stuff like that. And Vavra replied, imagine that women at the time were married at the age of 12 and had children. Also, they needed witnesses during first sex, which, first off, what? Which I believe them. But I'm saying what too? Man, humans are fucking weird. But two, I look at this and I'm like, fair enough. If we're being accurate to the time period, great. My concern, and this is kind of putting it back on Trent, call me crazy for saying this. Whoops. But drawing attention to this is not great, because then you're going to start to get people like, people like in the politics being like, wait, there's pedophilia in a game? What's going on in gaming right now? And then they're going to start getting involved in it without knowing shit about anything. And it's like, can we maybe not draw attention to this? That's literally so innocuous that no one gives a shit. Can we not do that here, please?
And it is unless Daniel Vavra is playing like 5D chess here and he's going, because there are a lot of people in the conservative movement that equate homosexuality with pedophilia and stuff quite often. And he's doing the 5D chase move of, oh, Embracer forced me to put homosexuality in the game.
Right.
I'll put homosexuality in the game. Unless that's what I don't think that's what he's doing. But unless that is what he's doing, I again just come back to this thing of time and place. Also, you are trying to tell a historically accurate story, no problemo. But there are some things that the audience wouldn't mind you taking a little bit of liberty with and just saying, okay, you know what, we're not going to have that.
Right.
Maybe that's not a good idea.
That's true. I mean, I do think it's an interesting conversation, but at the same time, I fall back on, and I know this sounds crazy to say this based off of literally PDF stuff going on, but I'm like, it's from a different time. Nobody knew the age of this dude until you literally counted the numbers up and made a big deal out of it. And even when you find that out, it's literally like, well, it fits the time that it happened. So, whoa, what exactly is the issue here? I'm struggling to find that. If someone can bring that to me and say, here's the issue, I'd be like, okay, that's great. But the way I look at it is like, I hate to be siding with Vavra because I'm not a big fan of him, but in this case, I'm siding with Vavra on this one. But
yeah, I don't necessarily mind that it's in there. I just sort of go from the perspective of, if you're a writer, maybe you don't do it, right? Maybe you just go, we're not going to be that realistic.
By going down the road they went, it does introduce this kind of stuff. So good point.
Yeah.
Because if he was just banging chicks in the game, nobody would be like, oh, let's count his age up and see if he's a kid. It's when it's the gay scene that a very religious leaning writer will find anything they can to be like, this is what's wrong with this game.
Yeah. And I think you most likely will, if you count up the age, find that Henry has slept with plenty an underage person in the game.
Right.
So it is sort of a thing of, the game didn't promote it that way. The game didn't make a very big scene of the fact that so clearly the game isn't trying to play into the PDF fantasies.
This one too, by the way, great point by Hypnotic. You literally just described KCD1 banging chicks while underage, and Hypnotic made a great point about this. It's like, where were these people during the first game? Why is it a problem now? Hold on a second. Are you maybe just jumping in now because it fits an argument, which is what I'm seeing out of this?
There are a lot of people that's doing that, but like, as I have explained,
and
I think
real quick, he says also, FYI, the question mark next to Hans. Historically, they don't know when he was born. They're assuming based off of other text. So anyway, continue. Sorry.
No. I think fundamentally it just boils down to, the writers clearly wanted to stick to historical accuracy. I think maybe some liberties would have been fine to go down and maybe don't stick to all of historical accuracy. But since it's not celebrated as such, right? It's not pushed as this, oh, you can be a PDF in this game.
Right. Right. It's not exactly. It's not like on the box art, like, oh, hey, want to be a PDF? Yeah. Here's the game for you.
Yeah, calling all PDFs. It's like, well, actually, I do think there is that. This is why I said you're gonna get people that will go, and it's not like there's a bias there, sort of knowingly being biased against it. It's just that, yes, you are gonna get, as a Christian, I don't want homosexuality in my video games, but I also know that it is not upon me to force my religion onto other people, because forced conversion isn't conversion at all. So I go the route of, as long as it's not forced on me, as long as I'm not forced to be gay, have it there. Doesn't really matter, because it is what it is. What am I going to do? I realize there are Christians who don't follow that. They're like, no homosexuality in my video games ever. And then I just think, well, I mean, what do you want? Because now we're getting to the place where we're telling developers what they can and can't do in video games. And that's literally what we're trying to stop.
Yep.
We want developers to just go back to making video games.
Well, this goes to my point where I was saying, like, these people to me, I'm reading articles like this, and I know there's a lot of controversy around this specific topic in general, and I know I've clashed with John F. Trent and Jon Del Arroz recently. This type of article does gamers no favors. This is the type of article that only brings bad things to the gaming sphere, and you're doing it all for what? You are clearly acknowledging that you are a tourist. You do not care about gaming. You are pushing this forward because you know it's a clickbait headline that will get people in, get people talking about it, and then potentially reach people to start impacting rules in gaming. And we do not want that. That's like the one thing that I always fight against. And when it leads to that, ultimately, I'm like, no. We don't need that. We have the ESRB. We're good. And what Hypnotic said here is proof positive of that. They don't push that you can be a murderer in the fucking game either, yet you're okay with killing kids because it happens. And that's my point with this. Like, I don't see any articles from Fandom Pulse being like, oh, you can murder kids in this game. And it's like, well, yeah, you can also murder people that aren't kids too. And literally every game. Where are we going to start drawing lines? What are we doing here?
So
it's a fucking video game. What are we doing?
I can give you the Christian perspective on this, right? From a Christian perspective, sexual immorality, not just in homosexuality, but even in people having sex outside of marriage or pornography and stuff like this,
it's on the same level.
But it is considered a lot more dangerous. The Bible itself, Paul says this.
Well, yeah, because the Bible is all about murdering people. There's a lot of murder in the Bible.
Well, there's judgment in the Bible that leads to killing. In the Old Testament, God doesn't just send the Jews out to go murder a bunch of people. He judges tribes that are, for example, with the Amalekites. They're literally sacrificing babies on altars to Moloch, their god. God warns them for 400 years. They don't change. And finally, God renders judgment on the Amalekites and says, go slaughter them, man, woman, and child alike. Because I've warned them enough.
But I think the problem is that we're running into here is now we're getting Christian morals being implemented into the broader spectrum of the world. Gaming, and that has no place. That's like, nobody needs to abide by the Bible. That's why me as someone who doesn't necessarily believe in that specifically, why should I need to abide by those rules? Why should that be impacting me?
That's my literal argument. As a Christian, I believe as a Christian, my job is to bring the gospel and the good news of Jesus Christ. That's it. It's not to tell other people how they should live their lives. It's to be apart from the world. So I'm not part of the world. If a game comes out and it wants to have all of the gooning in it that you can stomach, my job is just not to play that game. It's not to tell people that they're not allowed. But I'm just giving you the Christian perspective here. Sexuality and sexual immorality carries a much higher sort of place for Christians because they understand how corrupting it can be.
Right. I get that. But I'm going back to my why are you giving me the Christian perspective on a video game when that doesn't matter? That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah. So
why
I'm explaining to you
this conversation.
I'm explaining to you why there are Christians like, for example, the Fandom Pulse and the Melanie Max of the world.
Right. No, I guess my point is like I don't mean to be like countering you. I'm saying like I'm more speaking to John F. Trent, who's not here, where I'm this is the argument people have against. That's what I mean. I'm sorry that I'm like saying that to you.
No. I misunderstood.
People have against it, where it's like you keep pushing these things on people, and we're over here like, cool, that's how you feel about it, but that doesn't mean we need to believe the way you believe, bro.
Yeah. No, I fundamentally agree with you. But as I said, and I'm not speaking about John F. Trent here, I don't know his heart. I will not judge him for it. But you do get Christians.
I'll judge the way here for you. Don't worry. Go ahead.
That's fine. But you do get Christians who will use Christianity because there's a lot of ways to use Christianity to get your way, right? Yep. You can take one verse out of the Bible and twist it into whatever you want. Atheists do it, Christians do it. Well,
Melanie Mac
churchgoers do it.
Yep.
They love taking a single verse and twisting it out of proportion to fit their narrative. I'm not about that. I'm not a militant Christian, as it were. So yeah, from my perspective, it's fine if Jon just wants to bring this to people's attention and he wants to make sure that, and this is sort of how I view this article, he is just trying to make sure that the Christians who want to play the game, that they understand what is actually in this game and what is, and to that, more information, more better, obviously.
If that's the case, though, he needs to be more transparent about that up front, because I feel like
I do agree.
That's not how this gets delivered. This
No.
this gets like, hey, this is why it's wrong. This is and usually towards the end, although it looks like he didn't do it this time, but sometimes towards the end he'll be like, and Pope John Paul II said XYZ. I'm like, yeah, bro, what the hell does that have to do with the game that we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I think I view it just as more information out there. That's really good. There's nothing wrong with that. But don't try to tell other people how they should live their lives, because I always come back to the same thing. Forced conversion isn't conversion. If I hold a gun to your head and say Jesus is king, and you say it, that doesn't mean that I can go, all right, guys, Smash is a Christian. He just said the words. Yeah. Of course you said the words. There was a gun to your head, right?
Right. Exactly. Believe it.
So,
right.
Yeah, I'm sort of like, look, live your life. I will remove myself from situations that I feel uncomfortable with, but I'm not going to judge people for doing their thing. Do your thing. Just don't shove it down my throat.
Right.
That's my stance on it, at least.
Oh, fair enough.